Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today you join me in the 2024 Genesis GV60. This one being the entry-level premium model. With Genesis still being fairly new to the UK and Hyundai's premium brand, it's worth me investigating just to see if this stacks up against its many competitors. Unlike the other Genesis electric cars, which I have been impressed by, this one is a ground-up electric vehicle, not a conversion of an existing chassis. Prices start from around £54,000 and that gets you this entry-level premium model. But to be honest, the amount of kit on this is absolutely astounding. And what I do like about the lineup is as you go up the trim levels, the performance increases as well. So it's really easy to choose. So this entry-level car then gets you an impressive leveller's kit as standard. So it's 19-inch alloy wheels, some massaging seats which are also electric, heated, ventilated and have recline, dual 12.3-inch displays which have an absolutely incredible infotainment system, fingerprint and facial recognition, laminated glass for extra insulation, dual zone climate control, highway driving assist and keyless entry which works just by walking up to the car. It's got 225 horsepower and 350 Newton meters of torque, good for 0 to 60 in around 7.6 seconds, this one being rear-wheel drive only. If you step up to the next model in the range, the Sport, you get 313 horsepower and 605 Newton meters of torque, so a massive increase in torque there. 0 to 60 in around 5.3 seconds thanks to the all-wheel drive system. It is a bit more heavy though. This base model is about 2 tonnes, the Sport and Sport Plus ones are around 2.2. So that Sport model gets you 20-inch alloy wheels as extra and runs you around £59,000. Then there's the absolute top of the range model, the Sport Plus. This one comes with a monstrous 483 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque, good for 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, again all-wheel drive. That one comes with 21-inch alloys as standard, Napa leather, also uprated front brakes and a limited slip diff. So that makes the driving dynamics even better. Dynamic suspension and also a simulated gear shift mode for if you want to drive it more traditionally. That's a big jump in price of that one, £68,000, but I have driven the GV70 with that same powertrain and it is quick. As of recording this though, Genesis have announced their new Magma line of cars, which is their hot versions. It's supposed to be starting with the GV60 Magma and rumour has it it's going to have somewhere between 600 and 700 horsepower. So hopefully at some point I'll get to check one of those out for you guys. All models across the board come with a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, good for around 321 miles on this particular entry-level car and goes down to around 280, 290 on the faster versions. Although in my experience I've been getting around 260 in these cold, wet conditions. The good thing about it sharing the platform with the EV6 and the IONIQ 5 is super fast charging. 10 to 80% will only take 18 minutes on a 220 kilowatt charge. My average across my 10 days with the car has been around 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. I encourage you to go and have a play around with the Genesis configurator because it is very, very good, very interactive, shows you exactly what you need to know and really simple to use. There's one main option pack called the Innovation Pack, which I do recommend if budget allows. £2,800, but it does get you the uprated highway driving assist and also the blind spot cameras which come on when you turn the indicators, which I do find really useful, especially on the motorway. Another thing that I love that's included in this package is the 360 camera. It is one of the best that I've seen and really stitches the images together very well, makes parking this thing a breeze. Although to be fair, the short wheelbase really does help with that in comparison to some of its rivals. That pack also allows you the remote park assist, which I must admit I have used once in a really tight spot. I don't think it's something you'd use all the time, but it's definitely something really cool to show off to your mates. It does work really well. Just stand close to the car, you can remote start it, and then either let it crawl in or out of a tight space. One thing that did wire me up a little bit on the options list though, is the auto dim mirrors. It's one of those things where, why isn't it just included? It's 80 quid. Now you surely would just spec that, wouldn't you? Spending 60, 70 grand on a car? Yeah, slightly odd that one. You can also get a vehicle to load, which is quite expensive at over £800. Gives you a plug socket in the back and also the ability to charge things off of the car. Sunroof, £1,100. I personally would like it, but it's not the end of the world. Being a Hyundai product, the Genesis does of course come with a really good warranty and you get a 5-year care plan included in your purchase. So that means that Genesis will come to your door, pick the car up, drop off a courtesy car and take it away for servicing. That includes battery related stuff within that 5 years. That's really, really good. You also get discounted rates on IONIQ chargers and Shell network across the UK thanks to their Genesis charging plan. 5 years of roadside assistance, which apparently is done through AA. So overall, it does seem like a decent deal. Although it's in the same ballpark as the larger Tesla Model Y and also the Nissan Ariya, really you have to be comparing this car to its sister cars, the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai IONIQ 5, which it shares a platform with. So let's talk about styling then. I really find the GV60 an interesting design. A lot of people who have seen it, especially in my neighbourhood, have commented on how pretty of a car it is. It's grown on me a little bit. I do prefer the larger, more bolshy styling of the GV70 and the GV80, that kind of more Bentley inspired stuff. This one is a little bit more reserved, and in here it does feel more posh Hyundai than it does Bentley. Not in terms of quality, the quality is great, just in terms of the design and the way it looks. That translates to the outside as well. You don't have that massive chrome grille, it's more of a svelte design. It's lower and shorter wheelbase than a lot of its rivals, which means that there is a bit more limited space inside the cabin as well as in the boot, which is a bit of a shame. But it does make it more compact and more nippy to drive. I particularly like the front headlights with the daytime running lights, which transform into the indicators when pressed. And the rear lights are quite a nice design too. The only thing that really annoys me styling wise is the rear indicators. They're just shoved down the bottom out of the way, not really integrated in any of the design. A lot of other cars look a bit more premium with regards to that. Seems to be a common theme on the Hyundai Group stuff at the moment. It does have a really svelte look overall, although that coupe roofline does interfere with rear space a little bit. I like the rear spoiler design though, and just the overall shape of the car. It definitely looks better on larger wheels than these standard ones, but remember, this is the entry-level model. It still looks great. A lot of other cars are going for sharp, angular designs. This one's kind of gone back to curvy, and I quite like it. The fact that it is a bit narrower and a bit lower than some of its rivals means that from in here, it does seem a little bit more manoeuvrable and easy to place. For example, the Nissan Ariya definitely feels a little bit larger when you're sitting in this seat. I'd love to know your thoughts on the design. Do you love it or hate it? I don't know if it's one of those Marmite cars or whether it's just me taking a bit of time to grow on me. But overall, I think it's quite a handsome looking thing. So step inside the GV60 and you're greeted with a plethora of tech and really nice materials. Everything's really squidgy, nice feeling. You've got stitching on all the leather. The steering wheel feels nice. It's got a nice heft to it. You know, aluminium everywhere, even like the turn signals and the buttons on the steering wheel, it's all aluminium. You can feel it's cold and it's got that nice weight to it. The design I think looks nice. I don't love the dotted pattern, and I also don't love the weird kind of mini style stuff going on. I think the steering wheel looks a little bit too like a mini, and so do the door cars, like the handles and the buttons and things. Looks a little bit too much like a mini for me. But apart from that, it's a minor complaint. Like it just differs a little bit too much from the other Genesis cars, I think, and I prefer the other ones. However, this one ergonomically is absolutely fantastic. Everything's exactly where you'd expect it to be. Everything has a physical button or a toggle. There's no messing about. You've got shortcut buttons on your steering wheel and on the dash, which you can program to things that you want. And of course, you've got your drive profiles as well. So when you get in the car, it just tailors to what your needs are if you've got multiple users. The climate controls are sensational. There's toggles for your temperature, which feel really good. There's buttons for all the things you might need, and a nice big off button next to the automatic button. And you do have a few little touch controls on there for like your air quality stuff. It's got automatic air recirculation when you go into a tunnel and things like that, or in sort of highly polluted areas. And there's a few controls on there which are touch, but only really the essential ones. Everything else is a physical button that you would need to use every day. And then also you've got all of your buttons for your navigation and media, like shortcut buttons on there. The keyless entry system is really good. When you walk up to the car, it will automatically unlock and present the door handles to you. They're kind of those Aston Martin style ones that pop out. The only thing is they do hold a bit of water, which is a bit annoying. Your car's dried off and then you open the door handle and it all piddles up your hand. But what is handy is the handles pop out when you press the unlock button in the car as well. So if you're letting someone in, they don't have to faff about with it. Not only that, but this is the world's first car to integrate a facial recognition camera. It's on the B pillar of the door. When you walk up to the car, if it recognises your face, it will let you in. Simple as that. Personally, I think it's a bit of an expensive gimmick to include, but the fact that it's actually just included in the car, as well as the fingerprint sensor in here, I think is a bonus. Down in the center console here, it's kind of a floating design, a little bit like the Nissan Ariya, but unfortunately it doesn't move back and forward out the way, but it does mean that you've got a bit of an open plan floor setup. You have some key useful buttons down here, such as your heated seats, ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, your parking camera shortcut button, and a few other bits and bobs as well. The gear select is the rotary kind, which I don't mind, and this one has that really cool crystal ball that motorizes upside down when you turn the car on. I think it's a really cool effect. Everyone's commented on it when they got in the car, and it looks really great at night with the ambient lighting. The ambient lighting is a little bit basic, however, but you know, simplicity is key with this, and that extends to the infotainment system. The infotainment is a typical Hyundai affair, which means that it's really, really good, really responsive, and everything you need it to be effectively. But this one has a few Genesis touches. So the actual design of it has been updated specifically for the GV60, and I think even surpasses that of the GV70 and 80. The whole thing looks and feels great. It's got these really subtle, really classy graphics and animations. you can go into settings and pick parts of the car to choose from. Rather than going through menus, you can just press on the car where you want to change something and it just works. It's a really cool system. And then you've also got a really nice new font and layout on here for the Genesis cars. The whole thing looks and feels crisp, modern, and really well integrated. It's completely and utterly responsive. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it's never let me down, and I think it's one of the best systems that I've used. Not only do you get access to the touchscreen, but you've also got a little touchpad on the steering wheel which helps you skip tracks and also is really responsive. But that also helps you choose some of the tiles that you can see on the main screen in front of me. It shows all your key information, and you can also get a sort of a small map on there, and you can see things like weather information live, and in my case on this car with the Innovation Pack, you get your blind spot cameras come up as well when you're indicating like I am now. I often complain on rival cars that don't have the sort of Volkswagen Audi group virtual cockpit that it looks too busy, but this one doesn't. This one's got a nice graphic in the background, and it just looks really modern, really crisp. You can see all the information that you want to see, and you can get information out of the way when you don't want it. What's great about the infotainment as well is you've got a similar control down here to the BMW iDrive system. It's like a click wheel, it's got a touchpad on it. It works really well for navigating when you don't want to faff about with the touchscreen while driving. I think it's safer, easier to use, and it just works. You can kind of nudge it from left to right or turn it. I always love having both as an option, and I find it frustrating when I get in a car that is pure touch. You've also got things on there like quiet mode, which turns off the rear speakers if you've got kids asleep in the back. Other little things like that, just really nice touches. Steering wheel is a 2-spoke affair, which I'm not always too keen on, but you've got your drive mode select on there, and on the top end model you've also got your boost button, and you've also got some toggles for moving the volume and that kind of thing. You've got your controls for your phone on there. You've also got your one-touch highway assist button on there, which I always really enjoy. You've just pressed the button once, it will start steering itself on the motorway. Press again to stop. Super simple, no messing about. You've got your paddles on the back to control the level of regen braking, which we'll go on to in a bit. And then some nice simple controls, which everything you touch, it comes up on the screen showing you what's going on. I wish the same could be said for the seat controls though. Moving those doesn't bring anything up on screen, which is what I liked about the Nissan Ariya. It means that if you're kind of fiddling around, you don't know what's going on, you can really kind of easily see. As you can hear, there's lots of safety systems on here as well. That one is the lane departure warning, which will just beep at you at first and flash in a heads-up display, and eventually provide you haptic feedback or auto steer through the wheel. There's front collision assist, which works really well. The blind spot assist cameras in this also show blind spot warnings on the head-up display as well. So as you're driving along, you get a little red indicator to show that there's someone in that spot. This one I've got is also fitted with the Bang & Olufsen sound system, which is 17 speakers. Sounds really good, although I would like a little bit more fine tuning over the EQ personally, rather than their own system. What it does have though is active noise cancelling, which has little microphones built into the car which help reduce the exterior sound, and it really works well. It's quite quiet in here. That's also helped by this laminated glass. The only real concern I have quality wise in here is the center console section does creak and move a little bit, but it's a really small complaint. In the grand scheme of things, everything in here is really high quality. You can also opt for a lighter colour interior as well. You can get a navy with green stitching on the high-end model, or you can get like a nice cream. In terms of practicality, as I say, it is a bit smaller than some of its rivals. You'll really notice that in the back, especially if you're comparing this to its sister cars, the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai IONIQ 5, which do also come in a little bit cheaper. I do like the steep incline on the rear seats. It does make thigh support a little bit better considering the amount of space you've got back there. And legroom, whilst not bad, it's definitely not going to be up to scratch with its rivals because of the shorter wheelbase. You do, however, get a completely flat floor, which is nice because of the full EV platform. And in this one, you've got a plug socket back there as well. Headroom, again, is slightly impacted by that swooping roofline. I'm 6 foot on the dot, and yeah, it's definitely not as good as sitting in the back of an EV6, which feels quite limo-like in comparison. So you've got plant-based leather in here, which is actually quite a nice quality, and you've got yarn, which is recycled from plastic bottles, and also fishnets, which is really good for sustainability. I really like that. This driver's seat is nice, it's quite plush, and there's lots of adjustment in the thigh support, loads of electric lumbar adjustment, and also the side bolsters are electric, which squeeze you in when you're either at high speed or in sport mode. So quite a lot of stuff going on, and you also have the ergo motion in this as well, which is like a massage function as you go along. Full recline in this model as well, so when you're stationary you can get them to go right back, which is nice for chilling out. I would prefer if there was a little bit more upper back support though. I feel like I've not quite been able to get comfortable on a long journey. There's a nice space back there. You've got some Isofix points which are squidgy between the leather ones, and also a heated rear seats, which is nice, but yeah, it's just not going to blow you away in terms of space in comparison to the other two cars. The same goes for the boot. It's significantly smaller than an EV6 or an IONIQ 5. It's easy to load though, thankfully, thanks to the flat floor. and you can expand the space by reclining the rear seats completely. There is space under the floor as well to store the cables, but there's also a small frunk that you can do that as well, which is one thing that I found the Nissan Ariya to be missing. Practicality is up front. You've got some nice cup holders which are grippy. You've got a space for your phone to wireless charge, and you've also got a decent sized door bin for your water bottles. Glove box is pretty unique. It's not really like a normal glove box, it's more like a drawer. And I quite like it, to be fair. It means you can put things flat on there. It's easy to get things in and out. And yeah, I just think it's a little bit more practical than trying to stuff a tiny glove box in. So that's one thing that I will really say is a good feature. So what's it like to actually drive them? Well, in terms of noise levels, it's pretty good. I'm quite impressed with that, especially with this active noise cancelling feature. And it is a little bit softer than the majority of the cars in this segment as well. That's not to say that it is wallowy though, it's not at all. It just feels a little bit more forgiving over some of the bumps. One thing that has taken a bit of getting used to is the pedals. They're very, very responsive. The throttle response is very sharp, even in the kind of reduced settings. Like braking, the brakes are very responsive, and they don't seem to kind of bottom out and go marshmallowy like in some other EVs, which is nice. But yeah, it does take a bit of getting used to because they are very sharp when you first press them. And that can be a little bit irritating in traffic at first when you're getting used to it, because you find that you can't quite get it to roll nicely, like it's kind of like it jolts when you try and brake. But getting used to it and adjusting the settings does help with that. At the moment I've got it in level 1 regen braking, but what you can do is you can use the paddles on the steering wheel to free that up to 0, and then it will just roll along completely passively. Or if I increase level 2, level 3, now it's closer to 1 pedal driving. As soon as I let off, the car starts braking for me. Or if you go right down, you can go into iPedal mode, which is like a Tesla, 1 pedal operation, and it will bring you to a complete stop. Personally, I like it somewhere in the middle, but the fact that you can adjust this on the fly whilst you're driving is really, really useful, and a feature that I wish all electric cars had. So you've got an eco mode, which really dampens things down. It relaxes the seat for you. It makes the throttle response a little bit more muted, and it kind of reduces the power somewhat. You've then got your standard comfort mode, which is what I've been driving in mostly, and then you've got your sport mode, and your sport mode is the one that really kind of livens up the throttle response of everything. You can see that it's much more instant in terms of the torque. In terms of steering though, there's not as much texture through the wheel as in something like a Nissan Ariya, which is a bit disappointing really. And I do find that because it's softer than a Kia EV6, you don't have quite as much confidence in it in terms of going around the bends. But that doesn't mean to say that it doesn't grip, it really does. It's quite a sporty car, it's got that feel to it. I'm not pushing it too hard today because it is absolutely treacherous out, but you know, just giving it a little shove, it's really responsive. I'm gonna stick it into sport mode and put the traction into limited mode just to see what the kind of performance is like. It is quite wet out today, so I'm not gonna go too crazy, but being rear wheel drive, you do really notice that as you're pushing it through the corners. And I'm sure the all-wheel drive version has some nice capabilities as well. Let's get round here. Don't want it to step out too much on me. Whoa, there we go. Woohoo! And you can feel the back end kind of coming round. Obviously this being the rear wheel drive model, it's a little bit more playful. You can feel that it is front heavy though. You can also hold down that drive select button for a snow mode, and also all cars across the board have a drift mode. What you've got to do is you've got to come to a complete stop, put it in sport mode, turn the traction control completely off, and then hold the paddles for 3 seconds. That will activate drift. I actually think that this base model is perfectly okay performance-wise. It's definitely not rip your face off fast, but it is quick. And like I say, it's very responsive. In pushing it down here, I can feel the back end being responsive. Again, there's not quite as much texture through the wheel as I would like, but it is quite nicely weighted. It's light, but it's heavy enough to not feel like you're going to lose control of the car. And yeah, the torque is nice, even in this base model car. Like, unless you really, really wanted loads of performance, this one will be perfectly adequate for most users. There's not quite as much delay in the steering input either as in some other cars of its class, so that's quite impressive really. As I say, I just wish I could feel a little bit more of the road through the wheel. It's fun to drive though overall, especially at this rear wheel drive model. Although, yeah, I've tested the Genesis cars with that top end all-wheel drive variant, and they are absolutely ballistic, so I can only imagine what the Magma ones are going to be like. Turning circle's good in this too, with a short wheelbase, and thanks to that 360 camera as part of the innovation pack, it's really easy to place and really easy to park. Right, let's give the brakes a test here. Oh, that was good. And the seatbelt, I don't know if you saw that, the seatbelt tightened on me, the hazards came on. So yeah, the car responded extremely well to an emergency stop, and actually it didn't feel crunchy and horrible. Some EVs, when you get to that situation, it almost feels as though the brakes are failing on you, but this held true and the pedal still felt firm. Yeah, I like those. I said when I reviewed the Nissan Ariya, which is sort of similar in terms of experience to this, I guess, that I think the brakes are the limitation. I think in this, I think actually it's not the brakes. I think it's the way the chassis handles, I think, is the limitation of performance. The brakes are definitely up to the task. I'm just going to show you some of the custom sounds. I've had the engine sound off for the whole duration of this, but there's an engine version. There's also a futuristic version, which adds a bit of drama. Or electric motor. I normally have them off, but fun to play around with. But I think what you get here is a really high quality interior and something that's a little bit different. You've got the Genesis Care Plan. There's a good few things that might make you consider this instead of those rivals. I do just think that it's kind of its own worst enemy, because the EV6 and the IONIQ 5 exist. This is more expensive for less space. You've really got to weigh that up. But as an overall package, I think this is absolutely excellent. And I'd have no hesitation of recommending giving one a shot. Put it this way, even being a picky automotive journalist, there's nothing I can find on it that I actually hate. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you once again to Genesis for sending out the car. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the support on the channel, so please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Like, comment, share, all that kind of thing. And if you're looking for a lease deal on any new cars, check out the links in the description below. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.